something I wanted to add on to what you said about being sexy in the gym.
Oh.
So, we like you said, we want to do these movements that like are quote unquote sexy.
So just adding that in before is huge, but it's not super sexy. Like everybody always wants to see like, oh, how can I bench press more weight? How can I run a faster mile time? How can I do all these like sexy topics? But the biggest key is like staying injury free. Before we hop into today's episode, we want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to what we have to say. Over the last 3 years since we started this brand, we've set out on our mission to help people through the workouts that we create, through the supplements that we provide, and keeping people feeling confident in their workout apparel.
If you'd like to support our brand, you can go ahead to fitgrindformula.com and check out our supplements and grab a new gym outfit to feel good and confident in.
That's right. So with all that said, we're going to say thank you, and let's hop into today's episode. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about why runners need to lift. So we're going to go through how we're structuring our strength training in this half marathon prep and explain to you the benefits of lifting, even if you are still training for an endurance specific race or you are predominantly a runner. We're going to talk about how strength training is going to help you improve as a runner and just overall improve your body composition and just overall improve your health.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a awesome topic because not a lot of runners weight train. And I think once they do discover weight training, it's like a big game changer for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So just to start off, let's chat a little bit about how lifting weights can help prevent injury. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge aspect where I think a lot of times you'll see with runners, and this can go into like programming too, of like making sure you're not increasing mileage too much. And there's lots of aspects that can injure you in any aspect of fitness, unfortunately. But if you're strength training in your program and you're mixing lifting and running together, it is going to help improve overall muscle strength. It's going to help you build some muscle mass. It's going to help strengthen the joints around the ankles, the knees, the hips. And long term, that is going to help with reducing the risk of injury or running into those little nagging injuries that kind of happen. And it's a huge piece of training like a hybrid athlete is blending both of those together and having the equal balance of both, to where you might run a little bit more, you might lift a little bit more, but you're always still doing both in your program.
Yeah, and preventing that injury, you're going to run into some muscle imbalances. So when you find those muscle imbalances and you're able to correct those muscle imbalances by incorporating the strength training, I think you start to see some progress in your form and overall just power and muscular endurance when you're running. So
yeah, that's a good point. That's when you're strength training, you're going to be incorporating upper body and lower body exercises into your program, but you're also going to be incorporating unilateral movements. So that's a good point that when you're doing, say for example, you're doing like a lunge or you're doing a Bulgarian split squat or a single leg RDL or any sort of single leg, especially the lower body exercises, you might notice that, hey, I have this leg that's stronger, or this leg I am doing a lunge and my heel pops up. Or on this squat, when I'm doing a squat this side, my knee caves in. And when you find those little deficiencies, if you can strengthen it and correct that deficiency or that imbalance, I think that's kind of exactly what you're talking about. That's your specialty too, is finding those little imbalances, because eventually down the road, that's going to lead to injury. Say, for example, you have a weak right glute, and especially that glute medius, and say when you do your squats or you do a lunge, you have valgus where your knee caves in. Doing a strength movement, you're going to be able to see that, whereas at running, you might not necessarily notice it, but if you're running and you're running 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles, 10 miles, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles, and every step you take, there's just a little valgus and that knee caves in, you're putting yourself at risk for injury down the road somewhere. So that is a really good point, that you're going to find those little imbalances, deficiencies, right versus left, not just lower body, but also upper body too. And that gives you the opportunity to go in and correct those and kind of be proactive about your injury prevention with strength training.
Yeah, for sure. And those Those, like you were saying, there's like that, if you have that knee that caves in and you have that weak outer glute. So, and you're not aware of that because when you're running, you're not looking in the mirror. You can't see
Yeah.
yourself run necessarily unless you have a videographer that follows you around, which let me know if you have one.
Most
'cause
people don't. Yeah.
I'd like one.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
We were.
So, you know, you're not going to be able to see that or necessarily feel that because you don't really feel that because your body compensates with that. So let's say that weak glute is forcing you to maybe use more of like an adductor or something to keep the knee stabilized and keep the legs, you know, going, and you start to run into an injury after that because you're overusing other muscles because you have one muscle that's not activating.
Yeah. We're just not running the way you normally would because there's a weak muscle or there's a stiff muscle. That's another thing too that you can run into. Maybe you have mobility issues, right versus left, that you're going to exploit those mobility issues when you do strength training exercises.
Yes.
You might not exploit those mobility issues when you're running because even if you're pretty stiff, you can still run. It's a pretty it's not an easy movement, but as far as like,
natural.
yeah, it's a natural movement. It's not like you have to have extreme mobility to run. But versus when you're doing strength training, say you're doing a squat or you're doing a deadlift or you're doing a lunge or any of these big compound lower body movements, you do need a certain amount of mobility to get to a good mechanically sound position.
There's much more detail that goes into
Yes,
that.
yeah. And so that's where you can start to see those really differences, right versus left. Is one side weaker? Is one side stronger? Are they even? Or over time, say that maybe right now I'm not stronger or weaker on one leg, but over time, maybe you develop an imbalance. And I think that's a very proactive way that you can try to avoid injuries down the road, because that's the name of the game with fitness, not just running or lifting or whatever aspect of fitness that you love. The name of the game is to do this consistently for a long time, not just because we can make progress that way, because that's the key to making progress, is being consistently in the gym or doing your runs or whatever aspect of fitness you like, not just 1 week, but it's months and months and years and really have that compound effect. But if you are proactive with it, you're going to be able to set yourself up for success and just enjoy fitness for years to come, versus if you're battling injuries, that's not fun. That's definitely a huge downer on the program, and obviously that impacts progress as well.
Yeah, so with that, you know, we're preventing injury. We've talked about structuring a strength training plan that goes into detail so that we do prevent injury as well. Now, I think, like you said, incorporating in mobility is going to also help with preventing injury alongside with our strength training. So keeping a structured mobility plan in routine, like we have this specific routine that we go through before we jump into a run. Like we never jump into a run cold.
Never.
Because again, that is just going to cause all sorts of problems. You know, even though we may have addressed that we have a muscle imbalance, we still have to jump into warming that area up specifically before going into a run. So if you know that there's a specific area that is going to bother you, or maybe you have to activate that area, maybe you have weak glutes, you want to activate your glutes. If you don't do that before jumping into a run, I think that there's also that possibility of injury even more.
Yeah, for sure. You always need to run through some sort of warm up, even if you're going for a run, even if it's a slow, easy run. Always maybe do a little light jog first, get your heart rate up a little bit, do a good thorough dynamic warm up. And if you've exploited some areas that you're tight or you're weak, you need to activate certain muscle groups. So typically people are going to be, if they're going to be weak in their legs, it's going to be like their hips that are going to be weak. Say maybe you need to do some dynamic movements like clamshells or hip cars or stuff like that, things to get your hips firing, get them ready to work so that you're not constantly having that knee cave in. That's a huge place where you can really incorporate that into your warm-up and not only improve your performance on the run, but also just make sure the right muscle groups are firing. But that all circles back to, you're not going to find that out unless you're strength training with it too. So
Yeah.
It's full circle. The combination of both of those are super important from an injury prevention standpoint.
Yeah, I just posted a video running through my specific running like dynamic warm up and
did too
cool
the other
down.
day, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and ours are probably look different, if not a little bit similarities here and there. But I think, as I described too in my video, I'm like, this is what I'm doing because this is what areas that I know that irritate me, but also I need to focus on specifically before jumping into my run.
Yeah, I think that's one area that so many people lack. They just start, or even strength training too. So we're talking about strength training today. If you add a thorough dynamic warm-up into your workout, you're going to see better improvement in performance. You're going to make better strength gains. You're going to avoid injury. The same thing is true for strength training and running. So just adding that in before is huge, but it's not super sexy. Like everybody always wants to see like, oh, how can I bench press more weight? How can I run a faster mile time? How can I do all these like sexy topics? But the biggest key is like staying injury free. If you can prevent injury and you can just stay in the gym consistently because you're thoroughly going through a warm up, overloading accordingly to not doing too much at once, or you're adding too much weight each time you lift or too much mileage every time you run, that's the key to really making progress. So the things that aren't super sexy, like a good warm-up, are things that are going to make a huge difference in your program.
Yeah,
both
for
strength
sure.
training and running, they both apply there.
Yeah, you're right. We're talking about strength training. I got off topic.
That's okay.
I just got done running, so my brain is like
You're on the running mode. This
Yeah.
is a half marathon prep. So
Yeah.
But I mean that is what we're all about is blending both of those two together. They really do complement each other. It's the perfect. Well, actually, they don't. They don't complement each other in the aspect of they improve each other, but it's a good complement to your overall program. Where
Yeah.
if you're strength training, you're going to be able to build muscle. You're going to be able to build strength. And we'll kind of talk about that next on specifically how that's going to help you as a runner. And then if you're running, or even if it's not running, if it's biking, swimming, whatever type of cardiovascular exercise you're going to do, you're going to improve that cardiovascular energy system. And it's just the perfect combination in a program. So,
Yeah. Something I wanted to add on to what you said about being sexy in the gym.
Oh.
So, we like you said, we want to do these movements that like are quote unquote sexy, but something that I always tell my clients is we have to take one step backwards before we can take two steps forward.
Yeah.
So I love that analogy because we may be trying to hit a higher squat, but maybe we reflect on that and we're like, oh, wait, I'm starting to up my weights and I'm starting to feel some pain in my low back. Okay, we got to go backwards, figure out why this is happening, tweak some things, maybe, change our foot placement, work on some mobility or some depth, things such like that. And then we can go back and work on the weight thing. So I think that goes hand in hand too with when you're training for a half marathon or, whether it be you're trying to get your first pull up, whatever it is, sometimes we do have to go backwards before we can go forward.
Yeah, for sure. You never want to sacrifice the technique just to add 5 pounds or 10 pounds to the bar. I know a lot of people do because it's like this ego thing, but you would rather add weight to the bar because you did the exercise properly and you actually built strength or you actually built muscle, and that's why you're able to lift more weight. And you're going to do that by making sure that every rep is mechanically sound, and it doesn't have to be this like 5 second up, 5 second down thing. But we want to make sure that the rep is clean, that you're using the right muscle groups, that if you're doing a squat, you're lifting the bar with your legs. If you're doing a pull-up, you're lifting yourself up with your lats, and you're effectively targeting those muscles, because that's how you're going to break down that muscle tissue, repair, grow back stronger, and actually build strength and facilitate new muscle growth in the specific muscle that you're trying to train.
All right, so we've touched a lot on why strength training is important and prevents injury, and how we can incorporate strength training to make progress in the gym too.
Yeah, let's talk about some ways that you can progressively overload. And I think the most common way that people think of getting stronger, building muscle, is they need to lift more weight. And that is true. you do need to get stronger. If you are lifting 100 pounds in January, we don't want to be lifting 100 pounds in December of that year. So there has to be some sort of weight progression in order to build strength and facilitate some new muscle growth. Even if you're not looking to get super big and bulky, you do still need to try and overload. You don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again, because yes, you're getting benefit from the exercise, health benefits, but you're not necessarily providing any stimulus on the muscle. And that's the whole goal with training of any kind, is there has to be some sort of stimulus that the body is not used to in order to see some new growth.
Yeah.
You have to
Discomfort.
Yes, there has to be discomfort. Yes, exactly. That's the perfect word. So
No pain, but
yeah,
discomfort.
exactly. No pain. Yes, not necessarily like no pain, no gain type thing. You shouldn't necessarily be feeling actual like pain. You might feel like the muscle's burning and it really hurts.
Yeah.
Or it was a really hard workout. It was painful, but not like, my back is killing me. I can't even like bend over or touch my toes or whatever. So
Yeah.
weight is the most common way. Yes, you do need to lift heavier weights, but there's a lot of other ways that you can progressively overload, and you could be doing multiple things at once. It doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm only doing this way to overload and I'm only doing this way. It's just like tools in your toolbox. Like you can use these tools to provide new stimulus over time to just keep it interesting and keep things fun and just always making progress in some way, shape, or form. So weight is the most common. Let's talk about some other ways that you can overload and just improve in the gym when you're strength training.
Yeah, one that I like to do is add in like drop sets or add in extra sets.
Yes.
So when we do that, my muscles just like get to that point of like fatigue and that pump. And I think that muscle fatigue is where we also build that growth and stimulant on the muscle.
Yeah, and how you're overloading with that is volume. You're incorporating more reps, more sets. So say you were doing 3 sets of 10 reps on most of your exercises. And the next time you did another set, you did a 4th set. That's adding a lot of sets. So you're doing 8 exercises throughout your workout. That's adding an additional 8 sets throughout your workout. So that's a good way that you can overload. Obviously, there's a ceiling to that. You can't add a set each week and get up to doing like 15 sets on each exercise. You're going to be in the gym forever, and that's way too much. So, but that's a good way that you can overload. And these things don't have to be week to week. Like it can be just something that you're adding. Okay, from week to week, I'm trying to add weights. I've been doing this program. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to manipulate a couple things. Like you were saying, maybe I'm going to add a drop set in on this certain exercise, or I'm going to add another set. So I was doing 3, I'm going to do 4. Those little subtle changes are ways that we can create stimulus that provide that overload. We don't have to reinvent the wheel and be like, okay, I'm doing this program. It's been 4 weeks. I'm going to completely do a different program. That's not what we need. That's not muscle confusion. So we definitely can use these techniques as tools in our toolbox. What are some other techniques that you can think of?
Pause reps.
Yes.
So
those are spicy.
I really like this on like lower body stuff specifically, just because it's a good way to put some extra, activation on the muscles. As far as like a hip thrust, when we pause at the top of the rep, we're really, really squeezing the glutes and activating the glutes, and we're getting that mind to muscle connection too. Yeah. Which I think sometimes that people don't realize is part of the workout. Yeah. So mind to muscle connection is when we're doing a hip thrust and we're squeezing the glutes at the top, that means we're working the glute muscles. Now, if we just go through the motions and try to hurry up and get it over with, sometimes we start feeling those in like different areas because we're just trying to get it over with and swinging the weight around. And I think that's a big part of the puzzle too, is like, if I'm aware, okay, I'm doing a hip thrust, okay, I'm doing a squat, a lat pull down, what muscles am I working during this exercise so that I'm totally aware of, okay, when I'm doing this lat pull down, I need to get a good squeeze at the bottom of the pole and hold and fire those lats and then come back up. So I think the pause reps are awesome because they create that great mind to muscle connection, and being more aware of what muscle you are working is going to add stimulus onto that exercise as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're not going to be able to use as much weight, and that's perfectly fine because it's a different stimulus. So like It really does make you check your ego, but it all comes back to just, like you said, activating the right muscle. If you're activating your lats on a lat pull down and they're hurting like crazy because you're pausing on each rep and you're actually using your lats, but you had to reduce the weight, that's still fine. It's still a progression that your body's gonna be like, what is going on? And it's gonna recover, it's gonna build back strength, and it's gonna be ready for it next time. So that is a huge way that you can overload and adds a challenge to your workout. Because if you're just cranking through your reps and you're doing 10 reps with as much weight as you can, you're not feeling the muscle work, more than likely you're not breaking the muscle tissue down enough to actually build back stronger. Yeah. And there's actually studies that show that you can increase tension in a muscle just by thinking about it. You mentioned that mind-muscle connection. So
I love that.
So say you're doing a leg extension and you're coming up nice and slow, you pause at the top, come down nice and slow, and you're focused on just using your quads, you're going to get so much more activation out of that, and you're going to see better progress from that. So use that as, again, another tool in your toolbox. Not every single rep has to be a pause rep in your program, but it is a really good tool to add that, okay, maybe I'm stuck on my squat. I'm not building strength in my squat. I've been the same place where I've been for the last couple weeks. If you add a pause in the bottom of that squat, completely take out momentum, your legs are going to be firing like crazy, your hips are going to be firing like crazy, and it's going to get you more comfortable in the bottom of that squat. And when you start to load more weight back up, it's going to help you make that next progression. So it's another tool.
Yeah. I also really like when you're working out with somebody, like for you, I'll be like, okay, I just can't get my mind to connect with this muscle. Like something's not firing here. And if you just like touch that area, so like, you know, let's say we're doing like a face pull and the rear delts aren't wanting to fire. If you just have somebody touch that area too, it kind of like creates that mind to muscle connection a little bit better too. Even in the leg extension, you said like squeezing at the top, if you just kind of hold your hands there, like, come on guys, wake up.
This is the muscle I'm trying to activate.
Yeah. I like that tool too. It seems crazy, but it's so the mind is a powerful thing.
Yeah, for sure. So those are a couple tools that you can use. You can incorporate things like supersets too as well. We talked about drop sets, pause reps, 1.5 reps, eccentric reps. There's all these different tools that you can really use in your training, but the name of the game is really overload. At the end of the day, all we're trying to do is we're trying to come into our workouts or come into a run or whatever the workout is for the day and try and do just a little bit more than we did last time. Or we're going to do this exercise, but we're going to do it in a little more clean form than last time and just get 1% better. If you can try and focus on just getting 1% better, just one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, that's where you're going to make that progress. It's not just this, hey, last time I did 100 pounds on bench press, I'm going to try 150 today. Like, you're going to get hurt. You're not going to make progress doing that. It's too big of a progression from week to week. You need to focus on those little micro progressions. And if you can be patient with that, that's going to add up over time, and you're going to see better progress by doing so.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you can switch that up too, because it's psychological. We kind of talked about that too. Like it can get so boring to go into the gym and be like 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12, whatever it is. But the second that you're like throwing that drop set, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is really getting my heart rate up, and it's really pushing me outside my comfort zone. And I think that's the key too, is like we have to push ourselves outside that comfort zone. Just like anything in life, you're never going to grow, whether that means physically, mentally, you know, you're never going to grow until you push yourself outside and past that comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge thing too, like with this hybrid style of workouts, when you're running and lifting, you talked about the psychological aspect too. If you're just lifting 7 days a week, which you shouldn't be, you should be taking a rest day.
Hey, we've been there.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I promise you, take a rest day, your mind, your body, you're going to be able to take 1 step back and be able to take 3 steps forward. It's that type of deal. So take your rest day, 1 day of the week. You can still be active with it. So like on our rest day, like we're going to go to the zoo. Yeah, we're going to go to the zoo this weekend. We'll get a bunch of steps in, or we'll play with the kids outside. You can still move. Doesn't mean you have to be a couch potato, but yeah, take a rest day. That's huge. But back to my point of, if you're doing only running, or you're only lifting, or you're only cycling, you're only doing yoga or swimming or whatever it is, by blending 2 different aspects, so for us it's running and lifting, it allows you to always be excited for that workout, to where if it gets to be the same thing over and over again, it's just monotonous and, just another strength training workout, are you really being intense with that workout enough to like actually see progress and you're putting good effort into it? Versus if like right now in our program, we're lifting 4 and we're running 4. So there's a couple days where we lift and run in the same day. But we're always excited for that run and we're always excited for that day of lifting, because there's some days where our legs are trashed or they're heavy and they're from all the running volume that we're doing. And it's like, this is a good time to do a strength training session where if I went for a run today, would it be that productive? Or same thing, vice versa. If you're only lifting and you're like, man, everything in my body is sore, what can I train? It's like, okay, well, this is a good day where you can go for a nice, easy aerobic run. It's going to be productive. It's going to get some blood flow to the leg. It's going to help you recover. And it's going to help you just always be mentally stimulated. So as runners, you should lift to not only improve your body composition and building muscle, building strength, avoiding injury, but you should also run from a longevity aspect too as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get so burnt out on what you're doing that you hate it, you despise it, and you never want to do it again. So by being more balanced and blending strength training and running, it's going to help you from a psychological standpoint just be excited for that workout and really be excited for the next run or whatever it is that you're doing in your program.
Yeah, like for instance, today I was really excited to jump into a interval training session because yesterday was solely focused on upper body strength. So my upper body's sore from that workout. And then today it was like, all right, I'm ready to run. Finished the run and I said, holy shit, I'm done running.
I'm ready to lift. Yeah.
I'm ready to lift tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
for sure. It does help.
It's definitely a good balance, I think, where we're at. So like you said, if you're doing the same thing every day, whether it's just swimming or just biking or just running, that does get, what's the word? Monotonous, yeah. Monotonous.
Repetitive.
It gets repetitive. And I think when we get in that comfortable phase of life, I think that's where we stop seeing results. Mm-hmm. When we just get comfortable and start coasting, we're not going to see as much of the results that we're looking for. And then it becomes frustration and so many other things, mental, struggles. So I think, just finding that good balance, like pick 3 things that you like. Pick whether it's, running and yoga and weightlifting. Those all 3 go really well together.
Yeah, in your program, those will balance each other out very well. Yeah,
really well. And make sure you're obvious things, hydrating, eating healthy, and all of that will work its way out.
For sure. Yeah, the goal is not to do one thing for a couple of years, get really good at it, and then get so sick of it that you completely give it up. Like that would be such a waste. Think of if you ran for like 5 years, 5 or 6 days a week, you made all this progress, you have a really efficient engine and you're a great runner, and you're like, I'm so sick of running, I'm going to hang it up. Think of all the mileage that you went through, and maybe if you blended strength training a little bit more, you wouldn't be as sick of it. Or vice versa. You lifted for all these years, you got super strong, and you're like, man, I'm tired of this lifting thing. You want longevity with fitness.
Yeah.
So if you balance it out, it's really going to help with that longevity aspect, not just from a physical standpoint, but also from a psychological standpoint.
Yeah, and that looks different for everyone too. Like I said, it doesn't have to be running. It could be biking.
Yes.
It could be swimming.
Yep.
Anything that works for you and what you enjoy doing.
Yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
can sit down and think about, maybe it's 3 things, maybe it's 2 things that you enjoy doing, and come up with a program that balances out where you can look forward to doing each one of those things every week.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about our program that we're currently doing right now, how we're blending strength training and running, and kind of give more context to the things that we're doing and why we're specifically doing it in this half marathon prep. So I'll let you dive into that and kind of talk about what our weekly structure looks like for lifting and more specifically the lifting, and we can talk about the running too as well.
Yeah, so we've kind of chatted about this before. Not a whole lot has changed as far as being in this half marathon prep. So we start with a push-pull, and then we do an upper body strength training day, and then we have 1 lower body day.
Yeah.
So I think when we chatted before, we were like, I was up in the air of like, can I do 2 leg days and run with it? I think where that stands is I'm good with the one leg day right now. I feel like my legs are pretty shot by the time we run through that, 20 miles a week or whatever it is that we're running right now. And that continues to increase 10% each week.
Yeah.
So I think we've found a really good balance between our weightlifting and cardio, both getting 4 sessions in a week of strength training and then 4 running days in as well.
Yeah, I think everybody's different as far as how much they're going to be able to tolerate, and that's going to depend on their life, their responsibilities, their stress, their ability to recover, the amount of time that they've been training at that certain aspect. But yeah, we're strength training 4 days a week right now, which is a lot lower than we've ever really done. Typically we're like 6 or 7 days a week strength training, but it does help the recovery aspect. We are doing, like you mentioned, 1 day of lower body strength. We tossed around the idea of 2. For right now, 1 is enough, but that's really up to the person. Say that so like for us right now, we're in a half marathon prep. That's our main goal. Say that maybe we're not in like a structured prep. We're just kind of blending running and lifting. And hey, I want to build strength in this part of my legs. Maybe that's when you have 2 strength days for your legs. When it's not as structured, maybe there's not as much mileage. But it really is, a blank canvas that you can kind of create. Right now we're doing, like you mentioned, we're doing a pull day with an aerobic run. The next day is a push day with an aerobic run. The next day is a long run, so no strength training. Then we do a full upper body day again, so we come back and hit everything again. So the upper body is getting hit twice a week. Every muscle group is getting twice a week, which is good frequency to build strength and build muscle. That's a huge key too, that if you have a certain muscle group that you're like, hey, I want to build muscle in this group, or I want to get stronger in this muscle group or this exercise, do it more frequently. So increase it from, instead of doing bench press once a week, you do bench press twice a week if you're trying to get a stronger bench. Or if you're trying to get bigger glutes, you're going to do glutes twice a week instead of once a week. That really helps.
Yeah.
So, and then we come back. Thursday is another running day where it's just a track workout or a higher speed, higher threshold workout. And then Friday is the day that we hit the legs, completely strength, no running whatsoever. And then Saturday is a full day of rest. So that's currently how we're structuring our program. It's working very well in this half marathon prep and allows us to still strength train at higher intensities and still get the running volume that we need to facilitate the progress that we want and blend both of those together. And that's the key. Is it is hard to structure, like, how am I going to do this? And you can kind of structure it throughout your day depending on, or throughout your week, where maybe okay, I have more freedom here on this day. So for us in our schedule, it's like we can plan this out, block it off for longer runs so that we can go run together. And that's how you really start to craft the program, is what are my goals? What do I need to do? But also, like, what does my time look like throughout the week? Where are days that I can train?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a day that's like, I don't know how I'm going to train on this day. Okay, maybe that's a rest day, depending on what day it is. Just don't stress about it, and you can take a day of rest, and that's going to actually help your body and help your recovery.
Yeah. So also, like you were saying, as far as strength training goes, you're not just putting that on the back burner. So I still have goals in my strength training while we are in this prep. Like right now, my upper body goal is to get better with my pull-ups, because I know that Murph's going to be coming around here soon and I got to get ready for those pull-ups. And I think I took a step back on those for a while, because we did so many of them last year during Murph that I kind of took a step back, and now I'm ready to take that leap forward again. And so my focus has been working on those pull-ups, and then the other focus has been lower body, has been to try to build some strength in my quads. I know that you have goals too, so let's hear what goals you have still with your strength training.
Yeah, so even though we're training for an endurance race, I still love strength training. That's I love lifting weights. I love lifting heavy weights and getting stronger and focus on building muscle. So right now, I am trying to just, all the different compound movements that I'm doing, I'm trying to get stronger at them. So that's another key aspect, that if you're running and lifting, don't take out those compound movements.
No.
Those lunges, squats, pull-ups, bench press, overhead press, those big, good compound movements that are going to activate a lot of muscle groups. So most of my workouts, the very beginning of the workout, there's always some sort of compound movement that I'm trying to progress and get stronger at. So that's my main goal right now. Like you mentioned, we are also going to be doing a full like you mentioned, we're also going to be doing a full Murph series, Murph prep too as well. So working on pull-ups, getting stronger with those. I also want to make sure that I'm maintaining leg strength, especially because when we're running, we're working our legs, but it's in a different capacity.
It's more like endurance.
Yes, we're working different muscle fibers than you are when you're doing strength training. So that is a huge benefit to strength training, is you're actually going to build stronger legs, not just build endurance in your legs. You're actually going to build strength in your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves, your hips. And that's going to really help support your running and help you become a better runner.
And give you power.
Yes, give you power. Exactly. Really have a lot of power and strength in those legs. So that's kind of what I'm working on with my strength training right now. I am still hitting all those big compound movements. So I'm actually front squatting right now again, which is something I added back in the program, which is great. I always love front squats. I feel like it's a little more natural of a movement for me. And yeah, just really enjoying the strength training and still trying to, like you mentioned, it's not like it's on the back burner. It's still, okay, we got a strength workout today. Like, we're going to get after that. We're not taking that light. We're not taking it easy. We're still trying to build strength and build muscle. And we're trying to challenge that concept that you can't run and build strength and build muscle in the same program. You definitely can. You just have to be structured with it. You just have to always focus on that progression, like we talked about. There always has to be some sort of stimulus that you're placing on the body that is just a little bit more than it's used to. You're just constantly giving your body that nudge.
Yeah, I think too, when we are only doing the 4 days of strength training and we're used to doing 6 days, I think like it really gives me that like fire inside me to be like, okay, this is like one of 3 days of strength training. So I really got to like show up for this. I really got to give this my all because, you know, I can.
Yeah.
And there is some days where like maybe my legs are heavy and that leg workout, you know, it doesn't feel like I can push myself as hard as I want to. But then that's when we turn back to, okay, did I properly refuel after my runs, after my workouts? So there's all these different factors that go into that. But I do think, like we talked about too, like psychologically, it's just a good challenge too of like, okay, or a good change that I'm like, okay, I get to jump into this workout knowing that this is my only lower body day of the week. So I really got to like give it my all.
Yeah. I think also we've lifted and strength trained 6 to 7 days a week for years. So I think that does allow us to have a little bit higher capacity on that aspect.
Yeah, true.
To where maybe you've run more for years and maybe you can run a little bit more, but the strength training is the aspect that is hard for you. Like, you know, everybody's going to have different backgrounds, but for us, we've lifted 6-7 days a week for years and years and years. And that's kind of our base. But like you said, it does make it so like, hey, Friday's our leg day. If I don't bust my ass, I don't get to hit legs until next Friday again. Like I have a whole week to be like, you wussed out on this and you took too much rest, or you didn't grab the extra weight that you were supposed to. And then you got to think about that all week. And you're like, man, I feel bad about that effort. So it makes you make sure that you're giving good effort, because every strength day is 25% of the program of your strength training. So if you slack, it's like, I just slacked a quarter of my strength training, which over time is gonna add up and lead to losing strength and muscle. So yeah, it does place a little more like sense of urgency, emphasis on the strength days. And then same thing with the running. It's like, I got to make this count, because there's also a deadline. Like, I have this goal so my goal is running sub 135, which is a 7:15 average minute per mile pace. And I know that I got to put every run in, and I got to give good effort every run, and I got to hit my paces, and I have to focus on hitting every single workout consistently if I want to achieve that goal. So it gives that like that emphasis on each workout, and makes each workout really feel important.
Yeah, I think having a goal is a huge thing too. I know we've talked about this before, and this is something I touch on a lot with my clients is, okay, you know, we all want to lose weight. We all want to get bigger, stronger muscles, this and that. But find a goal that's like not related to how you look
Yes.
or, that's less of the physical aspect and it's more of like the performance.
Yeah.
I think that has changed my life truly.
100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, and I can feel it. Like it almost feels like that weight off your shoulders to take your strength training and focus on like performance opposed to like the physical aspect. Yeah, obviously we don't want to be overweight and we don't want to be unhealthy and we want to eat healthy and fuel our body properly and still focus on those things, which we do, but finding that balance of, okay, I'm still eating healthy, this and that, but what are my goals as far as in the gym that's going to make me excited, make me itch to get into the gym and do this, workout.
Yeah.
So I think having this half marathon as our goal, having the Murph to look forward to, saying, okay, I want to get better in my pull-ups. I want to get better in my squats. I want to get better in my grow strength in my legs, whatever it is, we're focusing on those specific goals opposed to the scale.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
And just use it as a tool. Like I do agree that training for performance does help the psychological component of exercise and fitness, because I've struggled with body dysmorphia for years.
Same.
You look in the mirror and you tell yourself that like, oh, you need to improve here, or you need to be bigger here, or you're not good enough because you don't look the way that you want to look, and
which is false.
Yeah, it's such a trap to fall into. And social media is also very present in our day-to-day lives, where it's like you see people posting pictures and they're training for a competition, so they're dialed in, they're shredded, but they don't look like that all year round. Like that's not,
or they're dying.
Yeah, or they're not healthy. Exactly.
Yes,
so
they need to get their blood work checked.
Yes, when you train for performance and you properly fuel your body, you treat it with respect by giving it the amount of food that it needs to give good effort, to make progress, to consistently come in the gym and work hard. And you balance your workout with strength training, conditioning, your mobility aspects. It really does just give you more fulfillment from your workouts. And I think it does give you a more broad spectrum, bigger picture of like, this is what it's all about. It's not about I'm only solely working out so that I can look good. Like that's very vain. It's we all want to look good. We all want to feel comfortable in our own skin, and we want to see progress and see our body change from the hard work that we put in the gym. But that can't be the only goal. You have to have other goals. Otherwise, you will not stick with it long term, or you're not going to be happy. You're not going to get fulfillment from your workouts. You're not going to enjoy that process. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make. That if you're listening, I want you to try and reframe your mindset around. Stop thinking about, I'm going to be happy when I lose this weight, or I'm going to be happy when I'm jacked and big and shredded. No, you need to be happy right now, and you need to start learning to fall in love with your workouts and enjoy that process, because the gift is not the end result of being shredded or being skinny or whatever your goal is. The gift is being able to come into the gym or go for a run or have your health, be healthy enough to participate in those things. So
move well.
Yes, reframe your mindset, and you're going to just see better progress, because you're going to be getting fulfillment from those workouts, and you're going to be more willing to put effort into those workouts.
Yeah, that's a rant that I could just go on.
Could, end rant. I could go on that all day long, because it hits so close. It hits so close to home for me, to where
me too.
I've struggled with that for years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the competitor side, and who knows someday if I ever do go back to that. But I will say there's nothing against that, but I do think it's important to do like a mental check. Okay, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Am I in a healthy spot to do this? Are my hormones okay before I jump into this? So there's so much more that goes into something like that. It's such a mental part of fitness.
Yeah.
So
no, you have to be willing and able and ready to partake in a fitness goal, not just physically, but also mentally. It's a huge aspect. So by running and strength training and doing your mobility work, and it doesn't have to be running too. Like obviously we talk about running because that's
biking,
what we're doing.
swimming.
Yeah. Any sort of cardiovascular exercise is going to improve your overall health. It's going to improve your performance. and it's just going to leave you feeling more well-rounded and better balanced versus just being really good at one thing. It's not very balanced. It's very, very specifically focused. And unless you're like a professional athlete or competing in a certain sport or a certain aspect of fitness, I really encourage you to try and branch out, try new things, and see if you like it. It might become something that you love. I never would have thought that I would love running as much as I do. I've always loved like sprinting and doing really hard workouts like that. But if you told me that I would enjoy running, I would have said you're crazy. So if we didn't try it, we never would have known that this is something that we could have so much passion and enjoyment and fulfillment from.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say too is I think that the endorphins that we release or that we get from a run are so different from those that we get from strength training.
Yes.
And I feel so different after each of them. So like after a run, I'm almost like energetic.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to and
then an hour goes by and you're like, oh my God, my body, what happened?
Yes. And then after a strength training session, I just feel like good, and I feel like my muscles are pumped, and like there's so many different endorphins from each. And I think that that's also important is getting that effect from both. And feeling good both ways.
Yeah. I'll go on a run and I'll go on a run and I'll be like, okay, like, Alyssa, this is what we're going to do with like business. And like, this is, I know what we're going to do. Like, this is a great idea. Like I have the craziest idea. This is how this is going to happen. And then you're like, what the heck? Like an hour later, you're like, my body's just destroyed. I was on cloud 9 there. Yeah. But then like you said, after a lifting session, you're like, you feel good. Your body obviously feels tired, but it's a very different tired.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel good about, I was able to go up on this exercise and this weight, or I was able to do one more pull up. Yeah, it builds like a different sort of confidence. So I love blending both. I know you love blending both. We love working out together and really sharing our passion for fitness and health together. And the last thing I want to say is just, like I said, I want to reiterate this. Branch out and try new things. And if you are a runner and you've never gotten to the gym and strength train, I encourage you to just try it and see if you like it. And even if you hate it, try and find some aspect, because it will help you improve as a runner, and vice versa. If you are a dude, I'm going to call it the dudes on this one, that only strength trains, try and get some sort of cardio in. It doesn't have to be running. That's what I love. That's what you love. But it doesn't have to be specifically running. It can be anything. But just try it and find out what you like, because you may surprise yourself and you may realize that this is awesome. I love this. And this is something that I'm going to do a lot and spend a lot of time doing and get a lot of fulfillment from it. So try and branch out. And if you hate it, just move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, endurance is also going to help you with your strength training. So
exactly.
You'll find that the strength training side gets a little bit easier too, and your rest periods
There's a huge benefit to both, not only from being well-rounded, but also physically as well. So
I think this was a great topic.
It is. Yes. So hope you guys enjoyed the episode today. This is episode 4 in our half marathon prep series. So we're moving right along. We are going to be doing this. Like I said, we have a 12-week prep. So if you guys enjoyed the video, I hope that you found something helpful, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Yep.